The Dallas Cowboys have made their picks in the NFL draft. They have signed their guys in free agency. And tonight, we predict who makes the team and who doesn't make the team. So consider it a fun exercise to get to know the team, as well as some of the most intense positional battles that the Cowboys will have going on during this offseason. Welcome into the show. Thank you for joining me, and let's get it started in here. Let's go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Prime Time. I'm your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network, with a lot more content coming your way. Make sure that you check out a2zsports.com/Dallas. And as always, remember that Primetime is brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. We will talk more about them and the ride of the week in a few moments here on the show. But before we do any of that, though, let's get into the Cowboys' 53-man roster projection. I've been wanting to do this one for a while now. There are some tough decisions, as always. And it's funny because you spend so much time making the tiniest of choices when you do one of these exercises that you don't stop to consider how many, unfortunately, injuries will take place throughout the offseason. How many of these decisions will be made by themselves because of that kind of stuff. And also, you also get a clearer picture as to forget about whose highlights you're seeing on social media more often, but who does the coaches sound like they like better? What are the coaches saying about this undrafted free agent and maybe this second-year player that didn't make the roster last year? That kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to give you a clear-cut example. Jalen Tolbert. I think, spoiler alert, it is very tough to leave him out of your roster projection because he was a third-round draft pick last year, and even though things didn't pan out for him as a rookie, you have to assume that the Cowboys are ready to run it back in his second year. After all, he was a top 100 pick. So that kind of stuff maybe in the offseason changes. Like, say Tolbert doesn't, hypothetically, doesn't come around throughout entire training camp and throughout the entire preseason. Do the Cowboys say, hey, you know what? It sucks, but it's time to move on. We'd rather carry someone else on the team. Could that happen? I really don't know, but this is what I mean. Like, this kind of stuff usually figures itself out, but we're still going to have a lot of fun, in my opinion, projecting this roster. Let me say hi really quickly. Shout out to Gregory, Stephen White. We've got Danny Savage as well, and this is a good one. I don't see 4 tight ends, 3 running backs, and then a fullback dressing on Sunday. Well, hey, stay tuned. Mills says, interesting. Want to see Tyrus Whitman. Oh man, Tyrus is an exciting rookie. He's one of those players that might raise his stock as we go into the offseason. Shout out to Bruce, Gregory. We'll get to that for sure. John shouting out Master Smith, Maria. Thank you for being here as well. All right. Bruce says, I have never rooted for flashcards more than tonight. No flashcards tonight. No flashcards. I put the time in. We have some graphics for you. Let's get to it. Let's start with quarterback. Real quickly. And hey, before we start, actually, some people have already offered their answers in the chat. Like, I saw the Tyrus Wheat shout out, and then somebody else had the shout out for Eric Scott Jr. We'll get to that too. Somebody mentioned Quinton Vohana. How about this? Drop in the chat. Who do you absolutely want to see make the roster? Kind of like your pet cat. And of course, don't answer Zach Martin or Dak Prescott. Like, who's your pet cat? Who's your underdog that you want to see make the 53-man roster? Let me know in the chat. I'll get to some of those answers as well. But let's start with the quarterbacks in the meantime, because it's an easy one, I think. Last year, the Cowboys opened with just Dak Prescott on the roster. Probably will happen again next year, but I mean this September. But we're keeping it in a more real sense right now, since we still don't know about the injuries, etc. So we'll wait on that until later. In the meantime, we only have Prescott and Cooper Rush in. I think there is no longer an ongoing competition between Rush and Will Greer. Maybe last year you could have argued that Greer had a shot at the backup job. And even during the preseason, we were kind of wondering if he had a place in there. Right now, obviously, I think Rush has earned the job. So I've got two QBs making it only. Although I do wonder a little bit about McCarthy maybe wanting more active quarterbacks, and by active I mean the roster. But this is the most realistic outcome for the QB position, in my opinion. Let's see some of your pet cats. Chris Graham, excuse me, goes with Isaiah Land. He's an interesting one. Uh, Only fight in this is pesky citizen is McKeon and the Tennessee tight end, Princeton Fant. Hunter Lipke says Jack and Deuce. Oh, that's the next position, man, running back. So you're getting your answer as far as my prediction, Jack, pretty soon here. Jeremy says Deuce as well. John Rockford says the fullback from North Dakota State that our boys drafted. Well, they signed him post draft. So just to be super specific there. Pesky says, I want to see the fullback. Give me Hunter Lipke, says Ron. Lipke is getting a lot of love right now in the chat. Bruce says, Simi Fehoko or Alarcon. Man, you guys know Isaac is my pet cat. I would love to see him on the roster. A lot of love for Lipke. Gregory says Asim Richards, the offensive tackle that they took in the 5th round. So let's move on to the running back. Let's move on to the running back position. And before we do, I've got another question for you in the chat. I'm going to toss a lot of this out throughout the show. Hunter Lipke, before I turn over to the next slide, Hunter Lipke, yes or no, does he make the roster? Not if you want to or not. Like, in your opinion, does he make the roster? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to turn over the slide and we'll see where my prediction landed. I've got the Cowboys carrying 4 running backs, and that would be Tony Pollard, Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, the 6th round draft pick, and yes, I've got Hunter Lipke right here, listed as a fullback. Now, this is an important one because I think that Lipke, and somebody already kind of touched on this in the chat, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler alert, but Lipke's presence on the team as a fullback might force the Cowboys to be okay with carrying only 3 tight ends. And now that would be okay because you'd think of Lipke, and trust me, he has the receiving skills. Many of you have already seen it in his North Dakota State tape. He can play as an H-back, kind of like this hybrid between a fullback and a tight end. If you want to be super specific, an H-back player type would be just like a tight end that's set back from the line of scrimmage. Lipke can be that guy. So if you're going to carry a 4th tight end to maybe take on that role, maybe you're being a little bit redundant, if that makes sense. I think that if the Cowboys do carry Lipke, it's going to be a situation in which he's also going to be expected to be a pass catcher in several situations. And then it gets obviously super exciting that way because you can line up with Hunter Lipke in certain maybe goal line situations, maybe 3rd and short situations. And good luck knowing how to match up against that, because he might be a blocker and maybe you don't want to put a safety or something like that on him, or he can be a pass catcher and maybe you don't want your linebacker on Lipke. So yeah, I think the Cowboys carry Lipke. And let me double down a little bit here right now. I've seen a lot of comments so far among fans, content creators, media members saying, hey, don't be surprised if Lipke makes the roster. And I think, hey, it's fair because I agree with them. But I think it's gotten to the point in which it will be a surprise if he doesn't make the roster, because this guy is a legitimate fullback that I think can really catch the ball at the next level. And I don't think that Mike McCarthy is going to let that opportunity slide. And I think that if you follow the money, he gets $200,000 guaranteed, and it's a different position than a lineman. Like, it's a lot of money for a fullback. I think he's making it. I think he's making the roster. Let's see what you guys have to say. You guys agree with me from what I can see in the chat. I asked you yes or no. Is Lipke going to make it? Jack says, he's a do-it-all fullback. I want him so much. Ron says yes. Okay. Mark Aaron says yes. John says yes. Pesky says yes. Chris says, is he healthy? Hey, hopefully that is the case. Nobody's hitting fullback on this team since the Moose, says Mike. Yeah, maybe you could count some players here and there, but like a legit long-term fullback, probably you're right, Mike. Jeremy says yes. Gregory, Stephen White. Jack says yes because of Mike McCarthy. That is right. Like, McCarthy's offenses were famously involved with fullbacks. John says Hunter's blocking skills. Like, it's not like he's going to be a, wrecking ball type blocker, but he's going to get the job done. He's going to get the job done. But also, like, let's be real. He's probably not going to be this bulldozer when it comes to blocking. I think that his value comes in the fact that he can do a little bit of everything. And that includes being a pass catcher. And that's where the whole Kyle Juszczyk type of conversations and comparisons come from the fact that you can use him as a legit pass catcher. Hey, shout out to John Jones. Thank you for joining the show right now. He also says yes. Gregory says, hey, don't be surprised if Jalen Moreno Cropper makes the 53. And hey, I agree. It's the next position too. I don't have him making the roster. Spoiler alert. But that fifth wide receiver spot is wide open, in my opinion. Let's get to it. Let's get to the wide receivers right now. I'm not gonna tease you any longer. Just one more comment though. Ronald Jones, Rico Dowdle, the two of them are gonna be in it. Like, this is my projection, my way too early projection, let me add, and we're gonna revisit this. Trust me, multiple times throughout the offseason. But Ronald Jones is gonna have a shot. I don't think that Ronald Jones is one of the favorites though. Rico Dowdle could beat out Malik Davis. Rico Dowdle is legit. I think that Malik gets the edge though, because he's a second-year player and all of that. So I'm giving him the edge here. But watch out for the running back position. It is going to be fun. Now, if Pollard is not healthy and he is not ready to go, then you could talk about some chaos in the in the running back position. And I don't know, maybe the Cowboys signed Rojo as kind of an insurance policy in case that is the case. Like, say that Pollard, worst case scenario, and I'm not saying this is the expectation, but say that he starts the season in PUP. I don't think it's going to happen. But then what do? Because you might carry Rojo and Davis and even Dowdle and Vaughn, and maybe call up Lipke for some games before you sign him. It's gonna be very, very interesting to figure out that for sure. Now, let me go into the next slide here really quickly. Let's get to the wide receivers, because Brian is asking, who is your fifth wide receiver? Let's get to it. I've got the Cowboys carrying sixth wideouts. Now, that would be, in my opinion, the big three: CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks. No one is going to question those. Some might question Jalen Tolbert. Some might do that, and I wouldn't blame you. However, third-round draft pick, second-year player, that is not the type of description that fits a player that the front office wants to move on from. So I think that they have not given up on him. So I think that Tolbert will make the team, and I think he's kind of a lock to me. Like, I don't see myself, unless we start hearing reports that he is stinking it up in practice or something like that. I personally do not see that happening. So I got him in my 53-man roster projection. I've got Kevontae Turpin. I mean, I think that more than anything else, as a specialist, But oof, I'm not sure that Turpin is that safe. Like Turpin might find himself in a little bit of a situation there because and you guys know this, I have talked about this a lot. I don't see Kevontae Turpin as a big contributor to offense. A lot of people want to get him more involved. I'm not entirely sure how much you can work with him. He's fast as heck. Do not get me wrong. He's fast as heck. I just wonder about the route running. I wonder about the play strength, the play size. As I always say in this show, I'm scared about watching him run a slant versus a crashing safety. That's something that I do not want to see. So I wonder about it, and I kind of doubt that. I think it's a long shot. I think it's a long shot to be on offense. And as such, you're always at risk. If you're a special teamer and only a special teamer like CJ Goodwin, you're always at risk. You might keep making it and making it and making it, but it would be unfair to not to say that he's a lock, in my opinion. So, nevertheless, he's on my 53. And then for the sixth wideout, which is essentially the fifth wideout for offense, the way I see it, I've got Dennis Houston. Like I went with the. This is one of my bold predictions. Maybe it perhaps the boldest of my predictions. I just think it's an open competition for the spot. You've got Simi Fehoko. He could take the spot. Dontario Drummond could take the spot. And then the undrafted free agents, Durden, Moreno Cropper, who's getting a lot of love by Cowboys fans, of course. Varvon, Jalen Brooks, a 7th-round draft pick, and Antonio Callaway. Maybe they all could fight for a spot and end up making the cut. But I'm just leaning Houston because of the reason that the Cowboys liked him enough for him to start last year. Like maybe not start, but like be that important wide receiver in week 1, like even over Jalen Tolbert earlier in the season. And then, of course, they, shut down that project and we didn't hear again from Dennis Houston. So I'm just saying maybe the coaching staff still likes Dennis Houston. I mean, it's still going to be Robert Prince as the wide receivers coach. It's still going to be him. So I'm going to go with a bold prediction there. I know it's going to cause a little bit of controversy. Let me look at the chat, actually. But yeah, that's my bold prediction. Let me go with it. A lot of love for Moreno Cropper. Pesky says Cropper is going to make the team, maybe just practice squad, but they will keep him. And I want to be very clear. These does not include the practice squad. Like practice squad guys are in the out category right here. So I'm not counting them. I will say that I do think multiple wideouts are making the practice squad, which is 16 players. Michael H says, be on the lookout for some unknown camp buddy wide receiver coming out of nowhere. I agree. Look out for T.Y. Hilton as well. Honestly, T.Y. Hilton is not signed with anybody, and he might be in a position in which he is enjoying the vacation. He's enjoying the spring or summer. What is it? Spring still, right? Maybe he's enjoying the seasons, man. He's not in a football mood right now. He's spending time with the family, maybe. I'm speculating here, of course. I do not know. But he might be one of those veterans that has had enough of NFL offseason programs. And maybe he's just waiting for the timing. I thought that was going to be the case with Jonathan Hankins. It wasn't. He already signed with the Cowboys. But watch out for T.Y. Hilton. He could be a late addition as well. Wilson will be released from Miami. This is my Cowboys family, kind of like pushing a Wilson reunion. My Cowboys family, shout out to you. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you. Levi says, I wish that they would have kept Noah Brown. Looking forward to seeing how Noah Brown does with the Houston Texans, because Bobby Slowick is their offensive coordinator, and he comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, which means they need run-blocking wide receivers. So I am actually kind of excited to see how Brown does it. Not that I'm excited to watch Texans football. Do not get me wrong. Had a decent draft class. Had a very decent free agency. Between you and me, low-key want to take a flyer on that Texans 5.5 game win total over, but I have not decided there yet. Let's see. I would love to have Ty backs as Michael H. Well, anyways, those are my wide receivers. A lot of controversial maybe cuts there, but that spot, that last spot, is wide open. Like we can say whatever we want. You could tell me that Fehoko is going to make the roster instead of Houston. You can say the same about Drummond, Durden, JMC, Callaway, Brooks, Varvone, and all of those are fair. It's about this one's one that's going to be decided in the offseason. So I just put Houston in there because he has the background a little bit that backs it up a little bit. Let's move on to tight ends. I've got 3 of them making it. Now, for those of you who are just now joining the show, I talked about this when I talked about the running backs. I've got Hunter Lipke making the team. And I do think it's going to be tough to carry 3 running backs plus a fullback. So essentially making it 4 running backs and then also 4 tight ends. Roster construction is a numbers game. And when I was putting it all together, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out entirely. So I don't have the fullbacks. I don't have a 4th tight end on the team. Oh, I forgot to add McKeon's name in there, by the way. I forgot to add McKeon there. Schoonmaker, Ferguson, and Hendershot in the team. And then Fant, McKeon. Maybe what happened there was that I mixed up the Green McKeon situation. So my bad there. And I already see the comments in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are right. McKeon should be in the out category. But the point is, I've got Schoonmaker, Ferguson, and Hendershot making the team. Bruce says, you are forgetting about the 4 horsemen at tight end. Hey, maybe I am. Maybe I am. Now, I think that's the kind of sacrifice that you have to pay in order to carry the fullback. I think you're going to have to carry 3 tight ends. You have to make this make sense. You have to make this make sense. The offense is going to change a little bit here. Now, would I love to see Fant make it? Yes, I would. You heard me talk about Fant on Sunday night after the NFL draft. So I do love Princeton Fant. Falls in a similar category for me than the fullback situation. I think that it might be a little bit redundant to carry Hunter Lipke and to carry Princeton Fant. Different body types, maybe, but H-backs at the end of the day, like they play the same role. I don't know if they're both going to make it. Keep in mind that these are going to be versatile players, hybrid players. That's why you love Hunter Lipke. And there's math involved with this. There's math involved. Like when you see the entire projection that I had, maybe I can share that Google sheet with you a little bit here after we're done with them. But like keep in mind, you got to make all of these fit. You got to make the defensive linemen work and the offensive linemen and the linebackers. So it's kind of a numbers game right there. So those are the tight ends. Let's move on to the offensive line. I will say that, though. Mark is asking, practice squad for Fant? Yeah. I like Princeton Fant to make the team. Not going to lie. To make the practice squad, that is. Really good point, says Brian. Excited to see Ferguson and Hendershot. Progress from last year, says Levi Boyd. There you go. Offensive lineman. I've got 9. Making it. Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Yadish, Martin Steele. No one's going to be surprised about them. I've got Chuma Edoga and I've got Matt Farniak making it kind of as your interior offensive lineman depth. And then give me, for tackle depth, Matt Waletzko, and give me Asim Richards, For those players who are out of my projection, I've got Josh Ball out. I've got Alex Taylor out. Hoffman out. And then Earl Bostic. Watch out for him, though. Earl Bostic is the one that I struggled with. He is also one of the highest paid undrafted free agents of the year. So he is one to watch out for. We talked about Hunter Lipke getting $200,000 paid in total guarantees. The offensive tackle out of Kansas got like 220,000. Or maybe I'm mixing those two up. I don't think that I am. But he got paid. So watch out for him. He could make the roster. Pesky Citizen asks for context. How many guys are they allowed to keep on the practice squad? That number would be 16, sir. 16. I see that the offensive lineman, I see you guys like the offensive lineman. Some people did mention Earl Bostic can make it, so that could happen. Yes, sir. I agree. Josh Ball, yeah, I have him as a cut. I mean, I didn't love what we saw from him last year, obviously. I don't think that anyone did. And then the Cowboys are already talking about trying him out inside after he was an offensive tackle only. So we could see some changes in there. And I do think that you brought in Asim Richards. You have the UDFA that we were talking about too. Like, I just think the Cowboys added some players, and Josh Ball is going to get out. He's going to be one of the odd players out. Yeah. I know people are saying, says Levi, that move Tyler to guard. But what do you think about moving Tyron to guard? I'm not a fan of that idea, but I mean, I'm not going to hate it, I guess, if it does happen. I struggle with the idea of having moved Tyron from the left tackle spot to the right tackle spot and then flipping him back to the left slot side, but now you're playing inside. I think that's like one too many moves for a veteran like him. Like, keep it simple, play him at right tackle or play him at left tackle, but just be done with it, right? Be done with all of these changes for Tyron Smith. I really have no idea how the offensive line is gonna shake out. It's very tough to figure that one out so far. Depth on the offensive line looks better this year, says Troy. Yeah, I think a 5th round draft pick like Richards will make that happen. And then Waletzko, who was picked last year, will also make it happen. Like, I think those 2 draft picks are the key to that. And then you added Chuma Edoga, who basically played a lot of football last year. So yeah, I'm keeping it simple. Like Gregory says, keep it simple. And that would be my offensive lineman. Now, defensive line. Defensive line is a fun one too, because there are going to be some cuts in there. We're going to start at the edge rushers, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start at the edge rushers really quickly here, because it's a good one. It's a good one. Some of you already offered some UDFA names that you think should make it. But here is my projection. I've got the Cowboys carrying 6 edge rushers. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, those are the locks. I mean, after all, Williams is a 2nd rounder. And then you've got Armstrong, Fowler, Viliami Fehoko. Let me know in the chat, where did I get it wrong at the edge rusher position? What do you don't like? Or maybe you do like it and you say, hey, you nailed it, Mo. That's also fair. But I don't think that I nailed it. This is a tough one. This is a very, very tough one, man. Because Isaiah Land, I know some people like Land. McKinley, I don't think people are going to be upset about that one. Darrell Johnson, and then Tyrus. I know Tyrus has some fans too. He's also out. Let me know in the chat, what do you think about this one? Here's my logic. Parsons, Lawrence, and Williams, they're obvious. I don't have to defend those. Dan Quinn likes Dorrance Armstrong, man. He really does. And I think that he likes the versatility of everything that he can do. Armstrong doesn't only rush from the edge. We see him very involved in the Cowboys' 8-gap pressures. We see him involved as a drop defender. He will do that every once in a while. Not that many times, but Dan Quinn is not afraid to drop number 92 into coverage and he has made an impact. Like, maybe he's not gonna get the PBU or get the interception, but he's gonna, you know, make the QB a little bit uncomfortable with his read because suddenly you have like a window taken away from you. I think that Armstrong is very, very important with that type of stuff. And I don't think that the Cowboys move on from him. Now, as for Fowler, I think that's one guy that might be scratched off from many, many projections. The guy played 29% of the Cowboys' defensive snaps last year. That's 3% more than what Sam Williams played last year. I think that's going to change this year, but still, that goes to show you how much this team really likes Fowler. Watch out for him. I think that Fowler is kind of a lock, honestly, but we could be surprised if one of the UDFAs ends up being a pleasant surprise, right? Now, for example, Troy says, never seen Dallas with so many defensive ends. For example, I think the last year, like if we really quickly Google like the Cowboys initial roster, it probably was something like this. Because I remember looking this up too, like to kind of always be sure about the structure of things. So, for example, Cowboys last year, they carried 6 tight ends, kind of. Chauncey Golston was maybe really your defensive tackle, but then Micah Parsons was listed as a linebacker. So I think that 5, 6 is fair for this position. Fowler good because of the contract, says Michael H. That too. Lawrence and Ware would have been nice, says John. I would have traded Dorrance after he sort of flamed out, says Bruce. Pesky says Williams was hurt for a lot last season. They didn't ask a lot of him, but he made a big impact when he did. Yes, sir. Hopefully that changes. With Mossy, they're all gonna eat, says Chris Graham. Hey man, I like the projection. Gilbert says I nailed it. Fehoko might be moved inside, as Mark Aaron says, but we'll see. On that note, by the way, on that note, Fehoko, I have him there, like 4th round pick. Might make it, yeah. So on a similar note, we're about to jump into the defensive tackles. And one of the things that was very difficult for me to answer is the following. Do you think, yes or no, that Neville Gallimore makes the team? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. And while you give me your answers, and before we dive into the defensive line, that also it's a position that features my guy, Isaac Alarcon, let me talk to you about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net. As always, they make this show possible. A family-owned business that has been so for over 65 years. You can check out their dealership at Irving, Texas, or you can visit their website at FreemanMazda.net. In there, you can browse through their wide range of new and used vehicles, as well as take a look at pictures of every car and see the features of each one of the vehicles. That includes this week's ride of the week, the 2023 Mazda MX-5 Miata RF Grand Touring. This one starts at $38,815. It's got Apple CarPlay / Android Auto. It's got a manual transmission, convertible roof, premium audio, a blind spot monitor, and a miles per gallon capacity of 26 when you are in the city. That goes up to 34 when you are in the highway. So make sure that you check out the Freeman Mazda Ride of the Week over at FreemanMazda.net. Shout out to them for making the show possible. So Neville Gallimore, does he make it or does he not make it? I struggled with that one. And it's one that I kind of maybe have gone back and forth throughout the day, but it's published. Like I published it. I'm not going to walk it back now. Jack says no. Mark Aaron says bye-bye Gallimore. Clebo says no. John says yes. Katharina says no. Bruce's Neville is probably out. Gregory says, I think that Tag McKinley might squeeze in. That's fair. They need to trade Gallimore, says Pesky. I don't know how much you would get in return, to be honest. Levi says, nope. Jeremy says, nope. most answers suggest that Gallimore is not going to make it. Clevo says, should have cut Gallimore last year instead of John Ridgway. To be fair there, though, I'm just going to say this. I'm not sure that they're the same type of defensive tackles. I know people don't like the Ridgway cut. And the worst thing is that he went to Washington, so I understand that frustration. I'm not sure that Gallimore and Ridgway, though, were exactly the same. So in that sense, you could make the argument for it. Some of you are not going to like this, but I've got Gallimore on my projection. I have a tough time buying into many of the UDFAs, just like because of my, usual way of going about things. This is my defensive tackle room. 5 of them. And just a quick note, I agree that Fehoko might be moved inside. I agree that Isaiah Land could also be kind of like moved around a little bit. So I'm just going by how they entered the draft process and everything. I'm assuming Fehoko is an edge rusher. I'm assuming that, Isaiah Land is going to be an edge rusher, all of that. Osa Odigizua, he would be your starting true technique. Masi Smith would be your starting nose tackle. Chauncey Golson has been a defensive tackle since last year, so I'm adding him here. Neville Gallimore, just because I think he's more of a backup 3 tackle here. And Jonathan Hankins can be your backup / rotational nose tackle, because I don't think that he's going to be like Masi Smith's full-time backup, but I think they're going to rotate pretty heavily. And then the 2 players that are out, and I say this with pain in my heart, Isaac Alarcon, nose tackle. There's already 2 of them on the roster. But hear me out. I still got a prediction about Isaac. I think he makes a practice squad. Now, this year is different. Over the past 3 years, Isaac was able to be on the practice squad and not count against the player limit. That means the Cowboys had 16 guys plus Isaac. But while all of that sounds pretty cute, Isaac was not able to be activated like every other practice squad player from one week to another. He could not be in an active roster for game day call-up. He had to be there was an entire process that essentially meant having him not be an international player anymore. So my point here is I think that Isaac still lands in the practice squad. This time is one of the 16 players to make it. And he stays there, but maybe he can be a call-up at some point during the season. So, however, I did not see him on the 53, and I also do not see Quinton Bohanna making it. This is more than anything because of the roles. So this is similar to what I just said about Isaac. Masi is a nose tackle. Hankins is a nose tackle. I'm not sure if Bohanna makes it here. This is my projection. Let's see what you guys have to say. Clevo says, I would rather keep Bohanna over Gallimore, and it will be very fun. This competition will be very fun to watch. Gregory says Bohanna out. I just don't see that, Mo. That's fair. Osa, Masi, Hankins, and Bohanna says Pesky. Michael H. and I agree says Gallimore playing from behind. He was a healthy scratch this postseason. Yep. Yes, he was. We better not try to put Fehoko in the practice squad like we did Ridgway. Says you're right. I don't think that will be the case. 4th rounder, pretty different. Even though it's just numbers, but I think the Cowboys are not gonna cut a 4th rounder, even if it's to get him on the practice squad. Better off releasing Gallimore so he gets picked up. Then we can get a draft pick, says Mark Aaron. I think Gallimore has been in the doghouse, says Mark Aaron. Sounds like it. Yeah. This is just kind of like, thinking a little bit ahead. I think it's going to be a competition. And I think that Gallimore maybe feels a different role. It might be redundant to carry Bohanna in there as well. This is just me. Though. Alarcon would be picked up by the Texans as Lance Bell. Hey, that would be fun. Blue Dab says, poor Mo really has no inside sources to the Cowboys. I'm going to change that. Hey, I'm just going to say this. I have never claimed to have any sources, so do not think that I'm doing that. I'm just having fun here, projecting the Cowboys roster. Not trying to be an insider, to be honest. So there you go. Defensive tackles. We move on to the linebackers now. Micah no longer is listed here. I think even since last year, I projected him as an edge rusher. So no changes there. Only 4 linebackers. Now, this might sound like a light group, but the Cowboys play a lot of 3 safety looks. They play a lot of nickel with 3 cornerbacks. So pretty much most of the time, you're going to see 2 backers on defense, right? So give me Banderesh, who's obviously making it. Damon Clark, who honestly would be my other projected roster piece, right? And then I've got Jabril Cox making it. We'll see if he ends up playing on defense. And then the Marvion Overshown out of Texas is obviously making the team. I wonder what his role will be to start, but at the very least, let me tell you this. 77% special team snaps have to be replaced because that was Luke Gifford's number, who is now a Tennessee Titan. And then out, Devin Harper and Malik Jefferson. Those are the guys that are out. Blue Dab says, Isaac Alarcon is a human marketing piece. That's it, and that's all. I don't know why y'all don't understand that, says Blue Dabs, because it's simply not true, man. It is simply not true. And I don't think that anyone has done more job on Isaac than, for example, ESPN's Carlos Nava, who actually is an insider and goes to the Star and everything. And he obviously covers it because he works for ESPN Mexico, so it's a big story there. That thing about him being a human marketing piece has been around for a while, and I don't know who started it. I think it's kind of dumb because the international player pathway has had players make actual rosters. And I personally do not think that Isaac is making the 53. So I'm going to say that. Like, it's not like I'm pushing him to be a part of the 53. But I'm going to say that, if literally no one had made 53-man rosters out of the IPP, which is the international player pathway, it would make sense, maybe. It would make sense. Does it serve as marketing? For sure it does. But then why are multiple, because it's like 4 of them right now in the NFL, who have arrived at the NFL through the international player pathway and are in NFL teams and have made rosters. And one of them has even been defensive player of the week a couple times, I think, F. So I don't know. I don't buy that. I don't buy into that at all. I get the logic behind it, but I also kind of think it's kind of a lazy explanation of things. That's just my take on that. Also, if that was the real intention, you wouldn't keep them around for 3 years. That wouldn't make no sense. You would keep them around for 1 year. You keep the interest. You keep the marketing and all of that. Mike Fisher said that marketing thing first as Bruce got the toxic use. I cannot confirm or deny that, but hey, I know this. I don't agree with it. And I think it's as simple as looking at the IPP players that have made rosters and have contributed to NFL teams. Anyways, moving on a little bit here. Oh, and by the way, just kind of like a additional note, 8 players were selected to random, not random teams, but like they were assigned at random to those 2 divisions now, which was the AFC West and the NFC North. That means that 32 teams have had international players there. 8 players now. That they raised the bar a little bit this time around. Anyways, moving on to the cornerbacks. 6 cornerbacks: Trevon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Daron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Kelvin Joseph, and CJ Goodwin. I wonder about CJ Goodwin just like I wondered last year. Like, it's the same conversation as Kevontae Turpin, right? You say he's not going to contribute to defense. It's only a special team type player, but they really, really like him. So he's never a player that I'm going to say that is a lock to make the team, but he's definitely one guy that is going to be in the projections because you know how much they like him. And on a similar note, CJ Goodwin is a big part of special teams. And we talked about Luke Gifford already. I don't think that the Cowboys want to lose so much special teams power from one season to another. Now, does Eric Scott Jr. change their mind? Does Eric Scott Jr. show that he can be a special teams contributor while he develops as a defender? Can Sean Wright do that? Can Kelvin Joseph do that? Joseph is a tough one because I know and we know that he has not been off to a great start. So he could be a cut here, definitely. I honestly think that it's going to be Joseph versus Wright versus Scott Jr. I think that will be the battle to watch. And I get what, for example, Hunter says. I think that Lewis might be out. Like, I think Lewis is out. Jordan Lewis could also be a surprise cut here. But I don't know why you would get rid of him. Maybe if it's because of the health side of things. Like if that injury was massive to him and his rehab does not go great and you're seeing a hurt player in practice, maybe you can move on from Jordan Lewis. But otherwise, I always think that NFL teams kind of value that experience as starters in the NFL way more than we usually do. So I'm going to give Jordan Lewis the benefit of the doubt here when it comes to his injury. Going to give him a spot on my 53. And then Joseph, I think, will battle it out with Wright and Scott Jr. and everything, right? That's going to be mine. Moving on to the last position. And I promise you, we're not going to end up debating a lot on the special team side of things. But let's go to safety. Let's go to safety. 5 more players. These 5 players get us to 50. And then you get the kicker, Vizcaino for now, Trent Sieg, the long snapper, and then the kicker, and the punter, Brian Anger. Those would be the other 3. No graphic for them, though. Sorry. Safety, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Jaron Kearse, Izzy Mukwamu, and Marquise Bell. I don't think there's going to be a lot of debates there. Mukwamu might be listed as a cornerback as well. We'll see what the plans are for the team. But in the meantime, and having him penciled in as a safety. You can look at the entire 53-man roster projection over at A2C Sports Dallas. But warning, it is in Spanish. But if you want to look at the names, go ahead and do so over at a2csports.com/Dallas. A few takeaways, though, before we leave. And I'm going to run through this pretty quickly here. Few takeaways. I would say, my dog is saying hi, by the way. Tight end and fullback go hand in hand. That's one of my big takeaways from this exercise. And we know about the McKeon absence here. Sorry about that. I replaced that by accident. If Hunter Lipke makes it, then you have one fewer tight end, in my opinion. Wide receiver, one of the most fun positions is going to be that spot for being the 5th wide receiver, excluding Turpin. Like, I'm going to call Turpin a specialist for now. Like Houston versus Fehoko versus any of the undrafted free agent guys or the 7th-round pick. That's going to be one of the most fun battles, in my opinion. And then I've got Josh Ball as a cut. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And yeah, edge rusher, no surprises there. Defensive line going to be a good one. Does Gallimore make it? Does he not make it? Sorry. I showed you the behind-the-scenes screen right there. So, yeah. The safety list looks solid. Mouse is Bruce. Thank you, sir. Michael says, Easy has position flex. He really does. And makes the math easier if you're trying to project this, because he's kind of like a guy that he can play on both sides. Gregory says, I like your safety list. Thank you. Man, the safety list. Man, the Cowboys defensive backs are pretty cool. Gregory says, Mo, how do you think Bell will play this year? Maybe not a lot, maybe not a lot of playing time, but if he has to play because of injuries, he should be fine, right? Like, we saw the flashes already. Let's see what 1 year of extra coaching did to him. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very, very fun. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor and hit the like button. Share the stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Let your friends know about Primetime. As always, it was a blast. And we are getting ready for the weekend, too. So as always, remember that Primetime is brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. You can check them out on their website and check out the write-off of the week. Enjoy your Friday and Saturday. and I will see you again on Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central. It's going to be a schedule week, by the way, so we might talk a little bit about the schedule. We're going into the thick of the offseason, so let's get ready for that. And I appreciate you being with me every single night. Thank you. Hit the like button for me. See you tomorrow night. Nos vemos.